Welcome to the Wild and Free with Anna Love podcast. I am your host, Anna Love. Wild and Free was born to inspire women to release old patterns that have kept them from living their best life. As a subconscious freedom specialist, I strive to reprogram and reframe generational trauma, not only in myself and the lives of my 3 daughters, but for those who are ready to transform anxiety, fear, and shame into authenticity, freedom, and love. Whether you are 20 years old or 70 years young, buckle up for raw and honest explorations in doing the work necessary so that you may shine your brightest light from your heart and onto the lives of others. Hello, welcome to Wild and Free podcast with Anna Love. Today we are talking about one of my favorite topics. It's called the model of the world. So if you do not know what I'm talking about when I say the model of the world, let's get to it. When we are just little bitty children and we don't even know much about the world, much less that there even is a world, we are going off of our caregivers' perceptions of how they feel. And I like to say the lenses that they are wearing. We are pretty much molded around and by our caregivers. And that includes anyone who spends a significant amount of time with us. It could be our teachers, our friends, can be obviously our parents, our siblings, our family. And their model of the world was established when they were kids. So think about it. If we have adult children, because in my opinion, all adults are still children, especially if they have unresolved trauma. If we have adult children raising children who then become more adult children, it's really a world in which our perceptions and our lenses are still stuck from decisions and beliefs from when we were a child. And a lot of the times, these perceptions are not even real. They are distorted. Some of our experiences that happened are deleted. And our remembrance of something that happened years ago changes and shifts as the time goes on, so that the actual event that happened is very different from how we are storing it in our mind's eye and how we are remembering it. And so when we are living our life, we are living much of the time in a distorted reality, which I call a false sense of reality, a false perception. And the trouble with this is that it just keeps on being passed on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And that's, great if the perceptions are those that are very uplifting and very empowering, and we can learn from our mistakes and our challenges, our opportunities for growth and development. But it's not great when we feel beaten down, or we're carrying a burden, or we're feeling any of the negative emotions of sadness, anger, fear, hurt, shame, or guilt, and they aren't even our own. They aren't ours. It's very much like a backpack that we've been given upon birth. And inside that backpack are these rocks, these boulders. It could be little pebbles, could be sand. And we start out with our parents' perceptions and our parents' model of the world. And then we start to add to that backpack with our own. And most of the time, it's going to be very, very close to our caregivers. So let me tell you an example and a story of my life and my model of the world and what it used to be, and how I finally broke free from that version of that false perception of what I was living for decades and what it is now, so that you can then understand and see and ask yourself, what is your model of the world? And does it need to have a little facelift? Does it need to have a little shift in perception? So let's get into it. I always, from the age of 9, I say always, but from the age of 9, I had to correct that. It wasn't always. It wasn't when I was a child, like 0 to 8. I'd say right around 9 years old, things began to shift. And really around 8 years old, things began to shift. But at 9 years old, things started to happen in and around my world that were not of the nurturing style, let's just say. Things were happening in my mom's life that was causing her to have stress, and things were happening in the present day, poverty, things were going wrong with her body. She was, starting to have more kids, and there was unresolved trauma from her past that started bubbling up, and she was getting triggered more and more and more. And when I was a little girl, I do remember there were some instances when she was triggered, but it didn't really have too much of an impact on me at that time. It did start to shift things for me, but I started to maybe put up a little bit of a tiny guard, and I was kind of standing back going, ooh, I'm noticing that. So I was noticing things. But when I was 9, I stopped the noticing, and I was being traumatized by what was going on around me. And there were negative things happening in the abusive form in all kinds of different ways. So, what I did to protect myself, and I'm sort of jumping the gun, but what my model of the world was at that point in time was that the world was unsafe. And when you believe that the world is unsafe, you then must what? Obviously, protect yourself. I didn't know it at the time, but I had created the next 30 years of my life under a false perception of the world is unsafe, and therefore I need to protect myself. I believed that I needed protection, and there wasn't anyone to protect me, so I was the one to protect myself. And I remember specifically, I will never forget this, because I told myself to lock it in as it was happening, because the abuse was so bad, and I felt bad much of the time. And I said to myself, I'm going to create these 4 walls around me, and nobody can get in. And I was talking, it was self to self conversation. And as we all do, we're always communicating with ourselves. I shut myself in. I created these invisible walls. I told myself that I've got this. And from then on, I didn't allow myself to be as hurt. It almost was like I put up a guard around me. And what it did for me was that it helped me survive. It helped me get through the uncomfortableness. But the issue was that with that comes other things. With that comes anger. With that comes resentment. With that comes guardedness, shutting down, closing down, creating stories around each one of those things that I just said, creating a story, and feeling not valued, feeling not respected. That was a big one for me. And so it wasn't until years and years and years later that I went to a training, and they specifically talked about your model of the world. And I had this epiphany in the training that I had it all wrong. And it was a big, big moment for me, of a big realization, where I realized I had created all of that storyline myself. And yes, things did happen that were negative to me. There was abuse to a child that was negative to me, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. Except I didn't need to hold on to that model of the world for so long. So when you are in survival mode as a child, you feel like you're in survival mode as an adult. You're that adult child still running around with these false perceptions. And you're using these tactics and these techniques that you developed when you were 9 that don't make sense anymore in the world of which you're living when you're in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s. Like, I wasn't 9, but I was still living as if I was 9. I was still living as if the world was unsafe and I needed to protect myself. And when I realized that this wasn't even true anymore, but I was like living this false like perception, I was like, wow, I could just drop this. I could just let this go. I can just shift this. And so I did. I, right then and there in my training program, I changed my model of the world to the world is safe, right? The world is safe. Therefore, I am safe, calm, and connected. And I started telling myself that, and I started taking action so that what I said was actually in alignment with how I was living. And I had to adjust some things. I had to let go of some ways that I was being. That's really important to get, that the way that you show up in your everyday life is absolutely connected to whatever it is that you are believing about your world and your model of the world. So I want you to now think about yourself and what is it, and you're going to fill in the blanks. The world is blank. The world is blank. Just what comes up. Don't overthink it. Let it just flow up. Let your unconscious mind answer you. And the world is blank. Therefore, I am blank. And obviously fill in where I'm saying the word blank. You're going to fill it in. Take some time to let this digest. This is such a piece of gold that I'm sharing with you. And it was life-changing for me when I was able to let go my old story, my old paradigm, my old world view, and I could actually breathe easier. I started being able to let down my guard, to not have to protect myself, because there was, the things that were there and present for me and real when I was 9 no longer existed when I did this in my 30s. So I hope this helps. This one's going to be a short one because it's a super important piece of gold that will hopefully change the rest of your life like it did for me. Enjoy, and I will speak to you next time. Love you. Join me for a free transformative masterclass where I'll guide you to design your dream life. You will learn about your unique blueprint and how to shift your reality. Creating a new you is made possible by elevating your conscious awareness. My 21-day Habit Shifters Challenge offers you an opportunity to shift and grow 1 millimeter at a time. If you are looking to upgrade your habits so that you can create a life that lights you up, you'll want to check out the challenge. Say goodbye to feeling stuck in unfulfilling routines and say hello to daily habits that bring you energy, joy, and calm. Stop struggling to create positive changes and start being the person you are meant to be with ease. Join with the link in the show notes, and as always, let me know how it goes. Well, thank you so much for tuning into Wild and Free with Anna Love and being a part of this magical journey with me. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe and share with someone you love, even someone you just like. Bonus points if you leave a review. Show notes below gives you everything that you'll need to know, and I'll see you next time. So long for now.